The rain hammered against the glass roof of Portland's oldest train station diner like it wanted to get inside and drown everyone. It was a gray Tuesday in early winter, the kind of day that made people move faster just to feel warmer. Marcus Reed, owner and head cook of Reed's All Night, stood over the flat-top grill, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill leaking through the old windows. The breakfast rush had been brutal. 2 cooks had quit the week before, the dishwasher was broken again, and a regular had just sent back his eggs for the 3rd time because they didn't taste like his mama's. Marcus was 46, broad-shouldered, and tired down to the marrow. He hadn't taken a day off in 3 years, not since his wife walked out and the bank started circling the diner like a vulture. He wore the same scowl he'd worn since the divorce papers were signed. At 10:17 a.m., when the crowd had thinned to a handful of soggy commuters nursing coffee, the bell above the door jingled weakly. A young woman stepped in, soaked through, carrying a little boy no older than 4. The child's shoe squished when he walked. The mother's coat was too thin for Oregon winter and had a tear at the elbow. She held the boy close, one hand clutching a faded red backpack that looked like it had been dragged across 3 states. They hovered just inside the door, dripping on the checkered floor. Every eye in the place flicked toward them, then away. Marcus didn't look up from scraping the grill at first. When he finally did, irritation flared hot in his chest. "We're not a shelter," he barked, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. "Bathrooms for customers only." "Out." The woman flinched as if he'd slapped her. The little boy buried his face in her neck. She opened her mouth, no sound came out at first, then whispered, We haven't eaten since yesterday. I can wash dishes, sweep, anything." Marcus pointed at the door with his spatula. "I said out. I've got enough problems." Heads turned. A trucker in the corner shook his head but said nothing. The woman's shoulders folded inward. She turned to leave, the boy's wet shoes leaving tiny prints on the linoleum. That was when Marcus saw it. Dangling from the woman's neck on a worn black cord was a brass military dog tag, one he hadn't seen in 19 years. His breath caught. The name stamped into the metal was unmistakable, even from 10 feet away. Reed, Daniel J. O negative. No penicillin. USMC. It was his own brother's tag. The one Danny had worn in Fallujah. The one that had come home in a folded flag when Marcus was 27 and still believed the world made sense. His arm dropped. The spatula clattered against the grill. "Wait," he croaked. The woman paused, one hand already on the door. Where did you get that?" His voice cracked like a teenager's. She turned slowly, eyes wary. The little boy peeked out, curious now that the shouting had stopped. "It was my father's," she said quietly. "He gave it to me the night before he shipped out the last time. He never came back." Marcus felt the floor tilt. He gripped the edge of the counter to stay upright. "What was his name?" he asked, though he already knew. "Daniel Reed," she answered. Everyone called him Danny. The diner went silent except for the rain. A waitress froze with a coffee pot in midair. Marcus walked out from behind the counter like a man in a dream. The scar that ran along his left jaw, shrapnel from the same convoy that took his brother, burned the way it always did when memories surfaced. "I'm Marcus," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Danny was my little brother." Her eyes widened. She took one involuntary step back, clutching the boy tighter. "No," she breathed. "That can't," he said. His brother died with him that day. That no one made it out. Marcus shook his head, tears cutting tracks through the grease on his cheeks. "They told our parents I didn't make it for 3 days. Wrong dog tags on the body bags. By the time they figured it out, Danny was all ready. He couldn't finish. The woman stared at him, rain dripping from her hair. Then, slowly, she reached up and unclasped the cord. She held the tag out with trembling fingers. "He wanted me to have it," she said. "Said if anything ever happened, it would bring me to family." Marcus took it like it was made of glass. The metal was warm from her skin. The little boy looked up at him with huge brown eyes, Danny's eyes, and asked in the smallest voice, "Are you my uncle?" Marcus sank to his knees right there on the wet floor. "Yeah, buddy," he managed. "I think I am." Her name was Sarah Reed. 26 years old, widowed when a drunk driver took her husband 2 years earlier, raising 4-year-old Eli alone on a waitress salary that barely covered the motel room they'd been bouncing between. She had been on her way to Tacoma to start over when the last of her money ran out in Portland. She had walked into the diner that morning planning to trade the only thing she had left, her father's dog tag, for a meal for her son. Instead, she found the uncle she'd been told was dead. Marcus closed the diner for the day, first time in 12 years, and took them home to the small apartment above the restaurant that still smelled faintly of his ex-wife's perfume. He gave Eli the bedroom with the glow-in-the-dark stars Danny had stuck to the ceiling when they were kids. Sarah tried to protest, but exhaustion won. She fell asleep on the couch still wearing her damp coat. In the weeks that followed, Marcus moved like a man waking from a long nightmare. He hired Sarah to work the front counter. No more sleeping in motels, no more skipping meals. Eli became the diner's unofficial mascot, charming truckers into extra hash browns and drawing crayon pictures that Sarah taped above the register, stick figure Marines with halos, smiling trucks, and always a man with a white chef hat labeled Unca Mark. The regulars noticed the change in Marcus first. The perpetual scowl softened. He started giving away pie to anyone who looked like they needed it. When the health inspector showed up unannounced, Marcus didn't argue. He just handed the man a slice of blackberry pie and asked about his grandkids. One night in early spring, after closing, Marcus found Sarah at the counter counting tips with shaking hands. Rent was due, Eli needed new shoes, and the transmission on her ancient Civic had finally died. He slid an envelope across the Formica. "Open it," he said. Inside was the deed to the diner, re-registered in both their names, and the keys to a little blue house 2 blocks away that had sat empty since their grandmother passed. "I can't," she started. "You're not charity," he cut in gently. "You're family. Danny would kick my ass if I let his daughter and grandson live in a car." She cried then, the ugly kind that comes from too many years of holding everything together. Later that summer, they changed the diner's name. The new sign read, "Danny's All Night. Open 24 hours, because some people need a place to land." Underneath, in smaller letters, "In memory of Sergeant Daniel J. Reed, USMC, who always stopped to help." They hung his dress blues photo behind the counter, right next to Eli's latest masterpiece, a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. The tallest one wore a chef hat. The middle one had a ponytail and a waitress apron. The smallest one held a red crayon heart bigger than his head. Every year on the anniversary of the convoy attack, Marcus closes at noon. He and Sarah take Eli to the cemetery, lay a slice of blackberry pie on Danny's grave, the only dessert Danny ever loved, and tell Eli stories about the uncle he never met but somehow carries in his laugh. And every time a weary traveler walks through the door looking like the world has kicked them one too many times, Marcus meets their eyes the way he wishes someone had met Sarah's that rainy morning. He pours them coffee, slides a plate across the counter, and says the same thing. "First one's on Danny. Sit. Stay as long as you need." Because some debts can never be repaid, only paid forward. And if you walk into Danny's all night on the right night, you might still catch Marcus behind the grill, touching the brass dog tag he now wears under his shirt, whispering the same quiet promise into the steam and the sizzle. I've got them, little brother. I finally got them.